That was awkward. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't even know how it got there. Oh, I know how.
I like it there, though.
Yeah.
I'll enter a motion that we enter into an executive session.
I'll second.
Okay, we have first and second. We'll vote by acclamation.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Is anyone online? Is this it here today?
Mr. Thompson, I believe.
Mr. Hobson?
Okay.
I don't see him.
Okay. Maybe they have him already.
Maybe haven't.
We gotta go? Yep. Okay.
There you go, Dave.
We have closing items, adjournment of the meeting. Have motions?
Mr. President, I make a motion that we adjourn.
I second.
By acclamation.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting's closed.
We have 1 minute.
It's,
Okay,
yes.
I'll wait. They're all there?
Yep.
You're good to go.
I'm not.
Are you going to slam the gavel?
But just let me know.
You just got to prepare.
Well, we got to do the
my
pledge too. Oh, yeah, leave that off. I'd like to welcome you to the EVIT special board meeting of Thursday, September 19th, starting at 11 a.m. Got to have a pledge again. Andrew? We know where the flag is now. Oh, we're pledge allegiance and turn the page. We have a student school calendar to approve. Action item number 3.
I move to approve the student calendar for 25-26.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion and second. We'll vote by acclamation.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, we have information that Dr. Wilson's going to give us. Dr. Wilson, you have the floor.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, thank you very much for taking your time today to come be part of this meeting. I know your schedules are hectic and busy, so it's very much appreciated. Before I share the information I plan to share with you, I want to just give you an apology, right? Because the information I'm going to share, you may have questions, you may want to have some discussion about it, and we'll have that opportunity in the future. But today, the purpose is just for me to share information. So you'll see the item is information, not information and discussion. Discussion will come out at a later time. And so I don't want you sitting up there feeling weird because you're not engaging in the conversation. I just want to make sure that I tell you why I did that so that we can have the information, you can process it, then we can come back at a later time and discuss it. As you're aware, part of what EVIT has gone through over the past couple of years is an audit and being audited by the Auditor General. And we appreciate the work that they've done in helping us become a better organization currently moving forward. But we also wanted to make sure that we were looking in the rearview mirror and making sure that what was done in the past was also within the best interest of the organization and the best interest of our communities. And so because of that, we spent time looking at several different leases that EVIT entered into prior to any of the current administration being in the positions we're in, prior to this governing board being seated. And one of the leases we reviewed was a lease with Adelante Healthcare. Now, as a reminder, back I think 2012, Adelante Healthcare opened a clinic that services our community right here on the main campus, just north of us, right on Main Street. And it's an opportunity, I think, that has the potential to be good for not only our students and community, but also for our students. But for Adelante to open that, they needed to lease land from EVIT. And so Adelante entered into a lease of land from EVIT. They leased about 2.5 acres back in 2012. And so as we were looking at the lease, our Director of Legal Services came to me and said that there are some things that cause him some concern and wanted to share them with me. And based on that, I asked him to dig even deeper into the lease to make sure that we're really understanding the issue that was there. One of the concerns is that the lease for 2.5 acres of land is roughly $2,700 a month. Which, based on the fair market value at the time of the lease, today's fair market value, and even the fair market value moving forward, $2,700 a month seemed a bit low. Equally concerning to him was that within the lease, there was no escalator clause or increase clause of the lease over the 40 years. So meaning the $2,700 that was paid when the lease was executed would be the same amount 40 years later. It was also curious to him that a lease was entered into for 40 years without having there be voter authorization, voter approval. Because it's our belief that at the time in which that lease was executed, any lease that was over 5 years long needed voter approval. As a reminder, we don't own these buildings, we don't own this land. Our constituents, our taxpayers do. And so any lease that binds the organization for a lengthy period of time needs the approval of those that actually own the land and own the buildings, which would be our constituents. And there wasn't seemingly any evidence that that was the case. So Mr. Kelwell spent a significant amount of time looking through board minutes and board agendas from 2010, 2011, 2012, seeing if there was something we were missing, something that would make us not be as concerned about the issues that we thought we were concerned about. He unfortunately, we came back to me, didn't find any artifacts or evidence that would give us less concern. In fact, there was even more concern that he had when he came back after doing the deeper dive. The additional concern that he had is that as he looked through all of the agendas and all of the minutes, he could never find where the lease was voted on by the governing board in a public session, which we believe is required for the lease to be executed. We said, well, maybe that was maybe the authority was delegated to the superintendent at the time. One would argue that that's not a delegatable authority, but maybe it was. So he went back and looked at all of the agendas, all of the minutes, and could not find any item within the agenda or within the minutes that would give belief that that authority was delegated to the prior superintendent. So he sat down and he said, here's the concern we have. We sat down as a leadership team and he said, this is the concern we have, is that we have a lease that was entered into that potentially wasn't approved by the governing board in a regularly open session. There's no evidence that that authority was delegated to the superintendent. That the lease at the time required voter approval, and we can't find anywhere that there was a ballot measure in 2010, 2011, 2012 that would have authorized the lease to be executed. And on top of that, there's a concern, and Kevin did a really nice job unpacking the concern, a concern that there is potentially, the organization violated the gift clause. That at a rate of $2,700 a month seems unreasonable based on fair market value. The interesting part about that is that when Adelante entered into the lease with EVIT, that was who was leasing the land, Adelante. About 10 months after that, Adelante came to EVIT and asked if they could move the lease from their control to the control of a different entity called Mesa Medical. And so in order for that to happen, in order for the lease to go from Adelante to Mesa Medical, it required there to be board approval, which we couldn't find. But we did find that the prior superintendent signed that was acceptable. So the lease goes from Adelante to Mesa Medical. I want to say shortly after that, Mesa Medical then took out a loan on the lease in the amount that was right around $4 million. For that loan to have been executed, the lender required there to be validation that the lease was in good standing. Again, that documentation should arguably have gone to the governing board, which it didn't, but the prior superintendent signed that it was a valid lease and the loan was executed. That wasn't the only loan that was taken out on the lease based on the lease. A second loan for roughly $6 million was again executed the same way. What was interesting about that second loan is in the documents that we reviewed, there was financials in the documents that we reviewed that indicated that Adelante, which was, remember, subleasing from Mesa Medical, that Adelante would pay Mesa Medical over $60,000 a month for the loan, for the lease and that leaseback option. And then Mesa Medical would pay EVIT $2,700 a month. So all of that together has given us concern that there's something within something within this lease that we need to get resolved. I want to make it perfectly clear. All that we have shared, all that I've shared, is based on our opinion, right? That I'm not saying it's factually correct or factually true. It's based on the information that we have. There may be other information that changes that narrative, and we're open and welcome to that. And at no time do I ever want either Adelante or Mesa Medical to not understand that we as an organization believe in the partnership that we have with them and the good work that can happen. But when we're in situations like this, we have a duty to report our concerns, right? I mean, I, as the superintendent, I'm privileged to get quarterly emails from the Auditor General's office indicating that if you have concern, please report those concerns immediately. And so we have that duty and that obligation. So after the meeting today, Director of Legal Services will submit a report to the Auditor General with our concerns. We also will submit a report to the Attorney General's office and ask them for an opinion on our interpretation of the issues that we have concerns about. And we were also advised to have, by an individual that has spent quite a bit of time and is an expert in school law, Ms. Siegel, to also submit the report to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, so that we make sure that we're doing our due diligence and that we're making sure that we're being good stewards of our taxpayer dollars and that we're doing what is in the best interest of not only our students, but also our constituents. It's interesting because, this is a situation that no organization ever likes to be in. And I will tell you that if our concerns are valid, then there will come with it some work that EVIT's going to have to do, because that's just the nature of how things work. And so I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said to me, well, Chad, why don't you just try to resolve it and make it correct and then move on? And I said, the thing about it is that we have the duty to report, we have the obligation to report, but it's more than that. I think one of the things I'm most proud about as the superintendent is to have a board and have an organization that does the right thing. Even when it's hard, you do the right thing. And it is right for us to report that we have concerns. It's right for us as an organization. It's right for our taxpayers. It's right for our constituents. So the information that Kevin will be submitting to the Auditor Generals and to the Attorney General and the FBI outlines the fact that we don't believe that was a vote in public that approved the lease. We don't believe that the superintendent had the authority to sign the lease. We don't believe that there was a vote by our constituents for the lease, which was required because of the length of the lease. And we believe that there's potentially an issue with us violating the gift clause based on the dollar amount that's being charged in the lease. Interesting about the dollar amount being charged in the lease. One of the artifacts that we looked at indicated that part of the value in this relationship was that our students in our health programs and others potentially would have the ability to do some of their interning and some of their clinical work within Adelante, which makes sense. That's a really good idea. I don't know that has matured the way that we had expected and wanted it to mature. Based on the quick analysis that we did, I can speak for the last 3 years. I think in the last 3 years, we might have had, is it three interns in Adelante do their clinicals. Part of what is in one of the original documents that references the clinicals is a monetary amount of what the clinicals would equate to that would offset potentially the cost of the lease. That may have made sense and that may have been well intended, but that isn't what materialized. Our students haven't been doing the clinicals and haven't been taking the opportunity. And even if they were doing the clinicals through Adelante, we as an institution have our students doing clinicals all over the valley, and we don't offset it with compensation to the institutions in which our students are doing the clinicals. And so the idea that part of the value added was monetized by our students doing clinicals, I don't know that is a sellable argument. In addition to the clinicals, part of the lease indicates that Adelante can't use that space to do training for both high school and adult students without our permission. And it's our understanding that there have been other institutions doing their clinicals in the facility without our permission. So it's a lot of information that I shared with you, and we will have this item come back again on future agendas. But I want to make sure that just reiterate again so that people understand and that you all understand. everything I'm talking about arcs back to 2011, 2012. The current administration, those of you sitting up, this wasn't happening, this didn't happen now. We, in our proactive approach to doing things the right way, reviewed the lease and determined that there was some cause for concern based on decisions that folks made long before many of us were even in the positions that we're in. And I also want to make sure that our faculty and staff understands that this situation isn't going to impact them. What we're talking about isn't going to materially impact how we operationalize the organization and what it means to them and their positions. But we just wanted to make sure that we did communicate to you and to our faculty and staff the issues at hand, because it potentially is an issue that will have even more to it as we go down the road. Okay? That's all I have, Mr. President.
Well, you have. Well, thank you very much for all that information. Whoop. Thank you very much for all that information. Have to have it on the PA. Okay. Now we got the information. All we have now is number 5, adjournment.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Thank you.
I'll second.
I'll ask for the question.
All in
By
favor to
acclamation.
adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.